This story is about a human giving birth on an alien ship where the crew, unfamiliar with babies, mistakes the screaming newborn for a threat. Captain Ellis Thorne had always assumed he'd die doing something stupid. Explosive decompression, maybe, spontaneous combustion during a first contact handshake, being swallowed by some sentient fog. Not this. Not hand in hand with his wife, pacing a silver corridor that smelled like ozone and warm paper, on an alien medical ship orbiting some forgettable moon in the Earth-X system. "Ellis," Caroline growled through her teeth, "I swear if you don't stop walking me like a prize pony, I'll put this baby out myself." Sorry, do you want me to carry you, or maybe I can talk to the doctor again, or—" Shut up. He shut up. It wasn't that the Zalari were bad hosts, quite the opposite. The elegant, translucent beings had gone above and beyond to accommodate the human diplomatic envoy when their ship had suffered a systems failure near Earth-X. Their medical facilities were pristine, their hospitality flawless, their knowledge of human obstetrics theoretical at best. Dr. Winksel, the ship's chief physician, stood near the entrance to the biomed pod with 3 of its 4 limbs wrapped around a shimmering hollow pad. Its voice translated smoothly in the air, but with a tone as anxious as a tax audit. "We have calibrated the environment to terrestrial birthing parameters. Nutrient drip is standing by. Localized nerve inhibitors on standby. May I ask again what level of structural disassembly will occur?" "None," Ellis said quickly. "Absolutely none. My wife's body it's built for this." "Built?" Winksel's inner core pulsed an uncomfortable yellow. "Built how?" "By nature," Caroline muttered, stepping onto the glowing medical platform. "Get the show on the road." Wenzel blinked, literally. The entire front of its body fluttered with light and turned to its staff. "Proceed to full monitoring, pulse field stabilize, commence operation, live manufacturing." "Labor," Ellis corrected. "We call it labor." "Yes," Winchell said. "Manual unit assembly." The first hour passed in tense silence. Caroline labored with a dignity Ellis would later describe as apocalyptic fury. The Zalari floated in sterile awe, observing every contraction as if it might summon a singularity. Then the screaming began. Not Caroline's. That had been expected, calculated, beautiful in its own human way. The baby, a sound like someone had microwaved a siren. It blasted from the newborn's lungs like a weaponized foghorn, shrill, raw, and unrelenting. The Zalari monitoring equipment trembled. Lights turned red. Winksell shrieked. Not a translation error, a full-on shriek. Why is it screaming? Ellis, who had just cut the cord and was trying to hand off the slick, wailing miracle to the nearest floating nurse alien, blinked. "It's a baby. That's what they do." "What is it announcing?" Wenchel backed against the far wall, throwing up a phase shield. "Life. It's announcing life." "Is it in pain? Is it signaling others? Is it preparing to detonate?" The room plunged into chaos. Sirens of the actual ship variety began howling in response to the baby's cry. Medical barriers sprang up, soundproof fields activated. A defensive foam oozed from the ceiling and began to coat the equipment. The infant, now swaddled in a shimmer wrap and very unhappy about it, kept up its declaration of existence at full force. 2 Zalari fainted. Ellis was too busy trying to hold his daughter's wriggling form without slipping on foam to notice. "I need a towel," he barked, "and someone tell the ship AI to mute its panic reflex." Caroline, pale but coherent, managed a hoarse laugh. "Bet you're glad we skipped the birthing glass now, huh?" Wenzel inched closer, eyes warbling with light. "Captain Thorne, with utmost respect." "What is it?" Ellis narrowed his eyes. "It's a girl. She's a human infant. A baby. This unit is very loud. Are all base model humans this hostile upon activation?" "She's not hostile. She's crying. It means she's healthy." Wenzel turned to its trembling assistant. "Initiate a level 2 containment field and scan for biochemical anomalies. It may be attempting sonic sabotage." The shriek intensified as if on cue. 3 hours later, the medical wing had been vacuum sealed and was being mopped up by an emergency crew. The baby, now sleeping in a pressurized cradle, had settled into hiccupy snores. The Zalari remained visibly rattled. Ellis sat beside Caroline, who was sipping a protein drink and glaring at the wall. "That was awful," she said. Ellis nodded. "We did it." Wenzel hovered silently before them, flanked by 2 security analysts and a scribe. "We did not anticipate this method of unit generation. The agony, the duration, the noise. That's just childbirth," Ellis said. "On Earth, about 4 million happen every year." Wenzel's light patterns flatlined. "Per planetary rotation cycle?" "Yep." "How many does each human produce?" "Well," Ellis said, "varies. Some none, some a handful." Caroline snorted. "One's plenty. Do they all emerge this way?" "Pretty much," Ellis said. "Some less dramatic, some more. Sometimes they even poop right out of the gate." The translator hiccuped. "Poop?" Ellis rubbed his forehead. "Defecate, evacuate waste. It's normal." Wenzel's staff shuffled nervously. The scribe, whose tentacles hadn't moved until now, finally whispered, "Do they come in other models?" Ellis blinked. "You mean genders?" "Functionality, variance, or some designed for combat?" Caroline snorted again. "Depends on how much sleep they get." "We are beginning to suspect," Wenzel said gravely, "that humans manually construct each additional personnel member through extreme biological suffering." "That is not incorrect," Ellis admitted. The room went silent, except for the baby's snoring. "Fascinating," Winchell said. Caroline raised her drink in a mock toast. "Welcome to parenthood." The ship's AI recalibrated its sonic threat filters to exclude all audio signatures under 5 kilograms. This was done after the 4th false lockdown triggered by the newborn's random bursts of wailing. Captain Ellis Thorne now carried a security override on his chest badge, specifically labeled Infant Noise Exemption. It beeped cheerfully every time his daughter sneezed. "You know," he muttered, jostling the baby in his arms as they walked the corridor. "This would all be easier if you came with a mute button." His daughter replied by sneezing again, loudly, and flinging a bubble of drool onto his shoulder. She seemed to do everything loudly. She even blinked with force. Zalari crew members passing by gave them wide berth. Some simply stopped, transfixed by the raw biological drama of it all. One, a low-ranking technician named Fell, dropped his nutrient tube when the baby hiccuped. The hiccup sounded like a malfunctioning alarm, but with a lisp. "Captain Thorne," Fell whispered, staring at the bundle, "has it achieved full consciousness?" "Now she's barely a week old." "A week? She is functioning." "He's functioning at screaming, eating, and pooping." Fell took a step back. "Those are combat behaviors in several galactic species. I can assure you they are not strategic in this case." Caroline, still recovering in the human quarters specially retrofitted for postnatal care, had her own diplomatic duties now. The Zalari medical staff visited daily with questions, diagrams, and new theories about human development. One asked if babies were incubated in hydrothermal vents during late-stage pregnancy. Another suggested the screams might serve to call reinforcements. Caroline tried to answer as best she could, in between sleep-deprived swigs of electrolyte water and repositioning her still-healing body. When she stood up too fast on day 8 and winced, Dr. Wenzel blinked and recorded it on 6 different devices. "Recovery period still ongoing," it noted. "Internal tissues were not torn, but did undergo temporary compression folding." Fascinating. "Does the adult model retain full function afterward?" "I'm right here," Caroline said. "And yes, with time, human tissue heals gradually. It'll be several weeks before I'm comfortable jogging again." "Jogging? That's the bouncing ritual with no clear purpose?" "Is exercise." "For what?" "Maintaining the adult model." Wenzel paused, then turned to the scribe. "They must manually update performance. Evolution does not perform firmware upgrades. Note this." On day 10, Ellis tried bringing the baby to the bridge, not because he wanted to show off, though there was a little of that, but mostly because Caroline needed to sleep for more than 90 minutes without being drooled on. Commandant Zesh, who had weathered supernovae and sector-wide plagues, barely lasted 4 minutes before requesting to initiate silent mode. "I can't mute her," Ellis said apologetically. "She's a baby. It's attempting to communicate, correct? In the same way a firework communicates with the sky." The bridge lights dimmed briefly as the ship attempted to isolate the sound signature from navigational alerts. The baby chose this moment to emit a long, mournful honk. An ensign ducked under a console. "Sir," Zesh whispered, "is this survivable?" "Yes," Ellis said, bouncing her gently. "It's part of being a parent." "Do all humans do this willingly?" "No, but we usually know what we're signing up for." Signing up, meaning enlisting for voluntary suffering in order to increase your population manually. You're not wrong. By week 3, the ship had developed a soft humming field to keep the babies soothed, a translation breakthrough of sorts. The field mimicked the sound of a heartbeat, which turned out to calm the infant more effectively than any pacifier. That and the blanket Ellis wore constantly now like a ceremonial sash. He and Caroline finally managed a meal together, their first real one since the birth. They sat in the observation chamber while the baby napped in her hover cradle nearby. "This is nice," Caroline said. She didn't scream for 4 whole minutes yesterday. A record. The door chimed and Wenzel entered, carrying a data spool. "We have compiled your infant's outputs into a working archive. We have categorized the vocalizations into types: distress, annoyed, spontaneous rage, and volume without purpose. We're working on translation software." Caroline raised a brow. "You're trying to decode crying?" "We believe your offspring is testing interspecies diplomacy. Her negotiation tactic involves sustained volume escalation until all opposition is neutralized." "That's just hunger." Wenzel tilted thoughtfully. "We notice she consumes nutrient formula at varying intervals. Is there a logic algorithm we are missing?" "She's figuring it out." "She is programming herself?" "No," Ellis said. "She's just learning. Humans do that." The scribe entered next, with a holopad displaying diagrams of various human babies. "We are attempting to catalog models. This one appears to be a standard female infant, type 1. Do you also produce twins?" "Sometimes," Caroline said. "And those are double units?" "Sort of." "Do they stack?" Ellis blinked. "What? For storage or growth optimization?" "No, they just exist. Like normal babies. You don't stack babies." The scribe scratched that note out. On day 22, the baby caught her own foot and marveled at it for 5 straight minutes. 5 Zalari watched in rapt silence. "This is the most pure form of contemplation we've ever witnessed," said one. "Does it signify enlightenment?" "It signifies toes," Ellis said. The Zalari dubbed the event the Moment of Foot Discovery and added it to the ship's cultural database. Caroline, finally well enough to stretch and move around without wincing every time, started visiting the ship's arboretum with the baby. It was peaceful, full of soft blue leaves and warm, spongy walking paths. The baby gurgled at the foliage, grabbed it whenever she could, and tried to eat it twice. "This is part of development?" Wenzel asked, watching her attempt to chew a glowing frond. "Teething is later," Caroline said. "This is just curiosity. He consumes all things indiscriminately. Only if you don't watch her." Wenzel took that as a warning and installed a low-grade containment halo around the stroller. By the end of the first month, the Zalari held a formal debrief to review the events. Ellis and Caroline sat in the center of the council hall. Their baby was in Caroline's arms, asleep and drooling. Wenzel took the stage. "We have observed the manual generation of a human unit from its pre-conscious state. We have witnessed agony beyond design, vocalizations beyond decibel limits, and recovery through pain rather than regeneration. The hall murmured in shared astonishment. We conclude, humans possess a means of self-propagation that relies entirely on biological gamble, prolonged suffering, and unrelenting persistence. Ellis cleared his throat. That's pretty much how we operate in general. The scribe rose next. We humbly ask how many of these units can a human female produce before collapse? Caroline narrowed her eyes. Collapse? Failure to function, death, expiration. Ellis interjected. With proper care, a few, sometimes more. But it takes a toll. Do you wish to scale production? What? No. The council conferred for several minutes in hushed tones. Then Winksell spoke again. We believe humans may be uniquely suited for certain frontier missions. Your method of reproduction allows for population growth independent of telepathic consensus. You can generate more even without a unified mind. That's one way to put it. Your model, Winksell said, nodding at the now snoring baby, is both a miracle and a crisis. We are both afraid and awed. Caroline smiled tiredly. Welcome to parenthood. The Zalari nursery was state-of-the-art. It shimmered with low-frequency resonance fields, ambient neural balancers, and something called a mood mist that smelled like clean linen and optimism. Not a single scream had ever been heard inside. Until now. Ellis jogged down the corridor, one sock half on, eyes wild, blankets slung over his shoulder like a towel of defeat. The sound of his daughter's rage echoed like it was being piped through a war horn. She's not hungry, he muttered as he entered. She's not cold, and she doesn't have gas. I think she just hates the idea of naps on principle. Winksell, already hovering near the cradle with an array of sonic dampeners, turned. Captain, we cannot recalibrate the nursery further without violating auditory safety laws. The current output exceeds battle drill thresholds. She'll stop eventually. For how long? Could be minutes, could be an hour. Human infants are unpredictable like that. Wenzel floated backwards slightly. Is she attempting to alter her environment through noise? A form of environmental conditioning? No, she's just tired and refusing to sleep. That is contradictory behavior. Welcome to parenting. The baby's wails crescendoed before sputtering out into an exhausted sigh. Her eyes fluttered shut. Ellis tiptoed to the cradle, exhaled in relief, then slowly backed out of the room. I don't understand, Winksell whispered. She was clearly unwell, refused assistance, then shut down on her own. Every baby does it. You live with this chaos willingly? The chance to see her smile for the first time? Ellis smiled. Worth it. Winksell processed this in silence for a full 10 seconds. Caroline had returned to walking circuits around the arboretum, baby strapped to her chest in what the Zalari now referred to as the mobile incubation harness. The harness had been Zalari modified to include adjustable gravity mesh and auto-cleaning fabric. Caroline still preferred the old Earth-made cloth sling. She likes the jostle, she explained to the scribe trailing her. Keeps her calm. We have tracked her neural activity during these walks. The rhythmic sway induces a trance-like state. Your young appear susceptible to low-frequency movement as a pacification tool. That's why we rock babies. But why not sedate them with telepathic suggestion? Because we don't have that ability. You do this manually, like everything else. The scribe looked down at the baby, who had discovered her own sleeve and was chewing on it like it owed her money. She has consumed part of her containment garment. She's teething. Your offspring grow teeth within weeks? That's aggressive evolution. She won't be biting through walls anytime soon, though give her a few months. The cultural briefing the following day centered entirely around the new footage captured from the baby's interactions. The title of the lecture was Behavioral Inconsistency in Manually Generated Humans. Ellis watched with a half-eaten protein bar in hand. The first video showed the baby laughing uncontrollably at a bouncing light orb. This behavior indicates joy, the presenter noted. The next clip showed her crying just 10 seconds later when the light vanished. This indicates sudden existential crisis. Then came footage of the baby trying to put her entire hand in her mouth, succeeding partially, then appearing horrified by her own success. This may indicate a failed recursive task loop. Ellis raised a hand. She's just exploring her world, learning through experience. Does she store this information biologically? More or less. And it builds a personality? Exactly. The room grew quiet. One of the scientists whispered, "You grow your minds." "Over time," Ellis said. "Your stress. Through living. Your young are forged in suffering." "Sometimes diapers," Ellis added. "Lots of diapers." 2 days later, the Zellerai hosted a small celebration, a naming ceremony in the human style, though no one quite understood the cultural protocols. There was no cake, but there were bioluminescent petals that floated in the air like confetti, and a soft, harmonizing chorus generated by the ship's AI. Caroline held the baby, now more curious than fussy, as Wencsil stepped forward holding a plaque etched with the child's name and date of birth. "Today," Wencsil announced, "we honor the first manually produced human aboard our vessel. We acknowledge the physical sacrifice, emotional chaos, and profound biological mystery this process entails." Ellis took the plaque. "Thank you. For everything." Wencsil's lights shifted to a hue associated with admiration. "We still do not comprehend your methods, but we have come to respect them." The baby gurgled, reached for the plaque, and immediately tried to eat it. "She's very interested in cultural exchange," Ellis said. Later that night, back in their quarters, Ellis sat on the bed while Caroline dozed lightly beside him. The baby lay swaddled between them, arms splayed like she'd just survived something epic, which Ellis figured she had. There was a knock. Wencsil entered quietly. "We've completed our analysis of the human development curve." Ellis raised a brow. "And?" "Your offspring will require constant care, variable sustenance, and unbroken emotional input for years." "That's about right. And yet, your species continues." "We do. Way beneath the thick layers." Ellis looked down at the baby. "Because one day she'll laugh at a joke, or ask us why the stars move, or draw something we've never seen before. That's the return on investment." Wencsil was silent. "We don't manufacture our people," Ellis continued. "We raise them, messy, slow, imperfect. But they're ours, and they surprise us. That is inefficient. Maybe. But it makes us who we are." Wencsil hovered a moment longer. "We have submitted a proposal to include your reproductive documentation in the Galactic Biological Archive, with your permission, of course." "You really want to archive crying?" "To understand you, we must." Ellis chuckled softly. "You're braver than most parents." By week 7, the baby had mastered a new skill, volume control. Which is to say, she now screamed with purpose. Not constantly, not even maliciously. She'd simply discovered that if she shrieked with just the right pitch, she could get someone to move fast, especially if that someone was Zellerai. "Sir," one trembling crew technician whispered to Ellis. "She summoned me from the hallway with a sound. She stared directly at me as I passed. I am certain she was issuing a command." "She was spitting up," Ellis said, wiping his shoulder. "Congratulations, you've been targeted for cleanup." "She is aware of our roles?" "No. She's aware she's uncomfortable and wants someone to fix it." The technician nodded solemnly. "Effective leadership at this stage is rare." Wencsil had reorganized its schedule entirely around the infant's waking hours. There were now 3 teams assigned to behavioral pattern recognition and 1 experimental group working on non-invasive translation software. So far, the most accurate interpretation of the baby's moods came from an overzealous AI assistant named Grell. "Alert," Grell chirped. "Unit displeased with limb positioning, initiating foot massage." "Do not massage the baby," Ellis said sharply. "Understood. Alert. unit expelling gaseous emissions. Threat level, negligible. Caroline, who had walked in just in time to hear it, collapsed into laughter. See? We don't need babysitters, we need a commentator. On day 54, the Zelarati attempted to host a diplomatic symposium aboard the vessel. Delegates from 4 species attended, all briefed in advance about the presence of the child. As a precaution, the symposium chamber was sealed in a triple-layer soundproof dome. At first, all went smoothly, until one of the Ferulians, a large aquatic species with delicate sensory membranes, asked about human social structures. Caroline had just entered the chamber with the baby in tow, planning only to pass through, when the child let loose a sound so piercing it cracked a translator node. The Ferulian ambassador collapsed into its fluid harness. "Apologies," Caroline said. "She does that when she's hungry." The chamber fell into stunned silence. The Delarith diplomat turned to Wenxel. "This is normal?" "Yes," Wenxel said. "This is a calm day." The symposium ended early. The next major milestone came quietly. It happened late in the artificial evening, just after a feeding, when Caroline had settled into the reclining pod and Ellis was adjusting the cradle's hover height. The baby looked up, locked eyes with Ellis and grinned. Not gas, not sleep reflex, a full, unmistakable, gummy grin. Ellis froze. He smiled at me. Caroline peeked over. "Really?" Like I just told the best joke in the universe. Wenxel, who had been cataloging the feeding schedule, immediately called for a recording drone. "We must document this moment of human emotional imprinting." "It's a smile," Ellis said. "It's not going to cure entropy. Your offspring now recognizes you. That implies a memory link, emotional bonding, possibly the first steps toward language acquisition. Or maybe she just liked my face." Statistically improbable. Still grinning, the baby grabbed his finger and squeezed. Wenzel's entire form pulsed gold. Miraculous. The final week aboard the Zolari vessel came with a sense of soft inevitability. Repairs on the diplomatic envoy's original ship were complete. Earth awaited, along with doctors, relatives, and 1,000 bureaucratic reports. Wenxel gathered with Ellis and Caroline for a quiet farewell near the docking corridor. "We have reviewed your species' approach to population growth, development, and survival. We have concluded that while chaotic, it is not entirely insane." Ellis chuckled. "That's high praise. You possess a method of species continuation that hinges entirely on trust and sacrifice. No safeguards, no neural nets, just pain and hope. That's about the shape of it." Caroline adjusted the baby in her sling. "It's messy, but it works." Wenxel stepped forward, holding a new data crystal. "This archive will serve as the first cross-species case study of human manual generation. It will be secured in the Galactic Biological Archive under your family's name." "We're honored," Alice said. "We are also," Wenxel added, "unsure whether we should warn other species or encourage them to observe further." "Maybe a little of both," Caroline said. The baby cooed. It wasn't a scream. It was soft, curious. Wenxel's lights shifted to a color Ellis now recognized as reverent wonder. "One last question," Wenxel said. "Now that she is functioning, what happens next?" Ellis looked at his daughter. "We raise her. We keep her safe. We teach her to walk and talk and think. And then, he becomes whoever she chooses to be. That is terrifying. It's also the point." The boarding process was slow, not because of the ship, but because every Zelari on the crew had come to say goodbye. Some brought gifts, neural safe toys, floating mobiles, a rattle that played subharmonic lullabies only infants could hear. Wenxel stood last in line. "Captain Thorne, Caroline, you have shifted our understanding of life. You just needed a baby to scream it into you. Indeed, if ever again a human arrives with offspring, we will be prepared.